Let's return to our top story now, the migrant crisis in northern France and those extraordinary pictures that we filmed yesterday showing how it spread to the city of Caen and its port of Ouistreham. But what can the lorry drivers do when migrants try to use their vehicles to stow away and get into the UK? Well, let's head to the Wirral. We talked to the Chief Executive of the Road Haulage Association, Richard Burnett. Good to see you this morning, Richard. Look, I've got to start with the question that everyone is tweeting me about this morning, which is why are these doors, the back doors of these lorries, not locked?
I think it's a really good point, and if you look at the footage that you've shot yesterday, what you'll see is that it's actually European hauliers that have not locked their back doors. Now, these European hauliers are leaving themselves wide open to be fined through the civil penalty regime, which has been put in place by the UK government to make sure that those appropriate basic measures are put in place. It's beyond belief that those European hauliers are not locking their back doors. If you look at British hauliers are making sure that they're padlocked and that they're secure. And the problems that we're facing from the British perspective is that actually the attacks that we're seeing in Ouistreham at the moment, British hauliers are actually being attacked on the approaches, so in lorry parks overnight, and actually the traffickers that are trying to move migrants as well are going to any means they possibly can. They're actually unbolting the hinges on the back of trailer doors, creating a gap and actually letting migrants into the backs of trailers that way. So I guess from a British perspective, we're doing everything we possibly can to make sure that we're secure, but the Europeans are not necessarily taking the same measures.
What about the consequences for any British driver who brings people into the UK unwittingly? I mean, how severe a penalty are they facing?
Well, you're looking at a penalty of about £2,500 per person for the driver to pay, but also the business to pay. That's a significant fine. And I think the problem that we've got at the moment, the civil penalty regime was put into place some years ago, and I don't think it actually fits with what we're seeing at this point in time. The shape of the migrant crisis is changing. How the traffickers are getting migrants into the backs of trucks is changing. And, you know, unwittingly, drivers are ending up with migrants on the backs of their vehicles, and there's little that they can do. They're still doing their daily checks. They're making sure their locks, their hinges are in place. But you know, clearly, migrants are still getting in.
I mean, the Border Force telling us that, you know, that all lorries are checked, you know, in France before they leave, and they're all checked when they get into the UK. Is that your experience? I mean, are those checks as thorough as we're being told?
Well, I listened to your interview earlier, and I listened to the comments from the Home Office, which I was a little surprised about. They talked about a juxtaposed position and therefore a British border in Ouistreham. That's not the case. There is no British border in Ouistreham. There is one in Calais, Dunkirk, Coquelles, but there isn't one in Ouistreham. So there are no British checks that are going or being put in place there, and there's certainly no security. So you know, from my perspective, are the British Border Force doing everything they possibly can in France? No. Are there sufficient checks in the UK when the vehicles come off? No. Are migrants getting through? Yes.
So what would you say to your members then who have got, you know, I mean, pretty serious concerns when we look at some of these images, even just being sort of chased through the streets like this? What is your message to them in order to keep themselves, their lorries, their cargo secure?
Well, I think that we've been very clear in terms of how far away from the ports they should probably park. The issue that we're seeing now is that these attacks on drivers overnight getting into vehicles are actually happening further and further afield. There's nowhere safe in France at this point in time, so drivers certainly need to be far more vigilant. If you believe you've got migrants on your vehicle, you need to go to the nearest police station or indeed the nearest border force to ensure that that's reported. But you know, even that said, we are still hitting issues where even when it's reported, the drivers are being arrested for a short period of time while they investigate and understand effectively how those migrants got on board. You know, this is a pretty traumatic situation for any driver. Drivers didn't sign up to have to deal with these issues on a daily basis. And, you know, we need the British government to influence the French government far more than it is. I know it's a difficult time at the moment with Brexit negotiations. We've probably got little chance of that. But this message needs to be rammed well and truly home that we've got to protect, you know, those drivers that are keeping our economy going on a daily basis.
Richard Burnett, good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.